General Laboratory Safety. The Wake Forest Department of Environmental Health and Safety is responsible for determining which regulations apply to the university and implementing policies and procedures to ensure compliance is achieved. The WFU laboratories are required to follow the laws and regulations developed by the following agencies. Prior to working in the lab, you must first complete general laboratory safety training. Additional specialized training may be required depending on the laboratory and the potential hazards. Records of all training should be maintained in the Lab Safety Compliance Kit. The training checklist has been developed to assist PIs in their role as supervisor and trainer and to ensure all pertinent information has been conveyed to the lab workers. The training checklist should be used as a record for all students or lab workers who receive a paycheck from Wake Forest and who conduct research within the lab. Prior to working in the lab, read those portions of the chemical hygiene plan pertinent to your laboratory and the work you will be doing. It was developed to provide the lab worker with necessary information to prevent harm due to exposure to hazardous chemicals. The plan is located under the Lab Safety section on the Wake Forest University EHS website. Hazard communication. Be sure to pay attention to signs in and around the laboratory. These are posted to alert you of potential hazards, identify locations of emergency equipment, and direct you to safety in the event of an emergency. Outside each lab space is a space hazard sign. On the sign, you will see the room number, the hazard pictograms indicating chemical or physical hazards that may be present within the laboratory, the chemical hazard information for the lab using the NFPA fire diamond, and emergency contact information. In addition to exit and fire extinguisher signs, the lab requires posted signs on specific areas, including the lab entrance, refrigerators and freezers, chemical storage areas, biosafety level areas, radiation areas, and areas with carcinogens. Regarding chemical labeling, the original manufacturer label must remain visible and is not to be removed from the bottle while product still remains. Non-hazardous stock solutions must be labeled in a manner similar to the chemicals transferred from their original container. Abbreviations may only be used if the stock solution abbreviation is known to all lab personnel. Labels on secondary containers are required to have the identity, pictogram, manufacturer, and must be legible. The identity of the chemical and appropriate hazard warnings must be shown on the label, along with the hazard pictogram. The name and address of the manufacturer or other responsible party must be on the label, and the hazard label message must be legible, permanently displayed, and written in English. Hazardous samples must be labeled either by individual container, as you would a secondary container, or by a sample containment rack or box holding multiple samples. The samples must be compatible, and the labels must be identifiable. Safety data sheets are available online at the WFU EHS website. Instructions for accessing the system are available on the SDS webpage. The SDS is to be used as a source of information regarding hazards and safety precautions for the particular chemical. All chemicals on campus are included in the online chemical inventory database. Labs are responsible for ensuring the inventory is accurate and up to date. Chemicals may be searched by name, product name, or manufacturer. See the EHS website for information. When you order chemicals through Workday, we will enter the information in the inventory and print and send a barcode label for each container. Each lab PI has a login to the inventory. Ask your PI for information in order to access. Please retain the barcode from the chemical bottle when it is emptied and send it back to EHS, and we will remove the item from the inventory. We would suggest having a clipboard for the lab, and we'll come by and collect the labels periodically. Personal protective equipment provides a physical barrier between a chemical or physical hazard and the wearer. In the laboratory, the main types of protective equipment are eyewear, gloves, and the lab coat. Shorts and dresses that do not fully cover the legs are prohibited in the lab. Open-toe and open-top shoes are also prohibited. Natural fiber clothing is recommended over synthetic fiber, as synthetic fiber will melt to the body in the event it catches fire. Chemical splash goggles provide excellent overall eye protection against splashes, vapors, and flying debris. Safety glasses with side shields afford minimum protection for use in the lab. Standard prescription glasses are not a substitute for safety glasses. The full face shield is worn in addition to safety glasses or goggles when the chance for exposure to splashes of debris is great. And protective eyewear must be ANSI Z87 rated to provide proper UV protection. This marking will be stamped onto the eyewear, typically on the side shield. Nitrile gloves provide the best overall protection for the widest range of chemicals, but not all chemicals. Neoprene gloves offer greater protection than nitrile gloves and should be used when working with concentrated, highly corrosive or toxic materials. And temperature-resistant gloves should be used when working with extremes of heat and cold, because it is important to protect the hands from burns. A lab coat should be worn as an additional layer of protection. In the event of a spill or fire, the lab coat can be removed much more quickly than any other article of clothing, and will offer a degree of protection to the clothing beneath. Individuals working with pyrophoric and flammable liquids on a regular basis should consider using a lab coat that is flame resistant. Laboratory waste includes general trash, which must be free of chemical, biological, or radiological contamination. Broken glass. All glass waste must be placed in a designated container, and no free liquids. Chemical waste. Biohazard waste, which contains infectious or potentially infectious materials. This includes sharps such as needles and scalpels. Broken and unbroken glass waste must be placed in a dedicated broken glass box within the lab. The box should be constructed of heavy-gauge cardboard to reduce the chance of glass shards penetrating the box. Do not place glass bottles still containing chemicals within the box. And when full, securely tape the box shut and place in the hallway for pickup by custodial staff. All chemical waste must be collected and labeled. Never drain disposed chemical waste or place in the general trash. Chemical waste must be collected in a container that is compatible with the waste. The label on the container must have either the full chemical name or a description of the waste type. And EHS handles removal and disposal of chemical waste either on a weekly basis or as needed. Benchtop collection. Organic solvents, alcohols, and aqueous solutions may be collected in containers that are 4 liters or less in capacity. Solids may be collected in lined benchtop trash receptacles. And these must be closed unless you're adding waste. In collection areas, many labs use labeled carboys to collect liquid waste either directly or to empty liquid waste from benchtop containers. Solids may be collected in 5-gallon, 16-gallon, or 30-gallon open-top containers. These larger containers should be placed within a secondary containment tray. Containers must be closed unless adding waste. Personnel in labs generating biohazard waste must read the Wake Forest University Biosafety Plan. Labs must adhere to the protocols described in the Biohazard Waste Plan for collection and disposal of all biohazard waste and sharps. Both of these documents are located on the EHS website, along with training. Spills and releases, accidents and injuries, and emergency. Minor spills and releases. Minor spills in the lab can be cleaned using available chemical spill kits. Know the location of the spill kit prior to a spill. A minor spill requires no more than one person and no more effort than general housekeeping to clean. Refer to the SDS for proper procedure. Report minor spills to the safety officer, the PI, and the lab manager. Order replacement spill cleanup materials as directed. Collected spill material must be containerized and labeled as waste and include the proper chemical name. Due to the size of a spill or the nature of the hazard involved, some spills may not be cleaned by laboratory personnel and will require the activation of the Wake Forest University Integrated Contingency Plan to allow adequate and appropriate resources to respond. This will occur in instances of a fire or explosion related to hazardous material, the sudden or non-sudden release involving a poison by inhalation hazard or acutely toxic substance, sudden or non-sudden release that would require the use of a respirator during response, and release of a hazardous material of greater volume than can be cleaned under normal circumstances by a single person. In the event of a non-minor spill or release, make sure to follow these steps. First, notify occupants. Immediately notify all the lab occupants of the spill and that they should evacuate. Extinguish all open flames if it is safe to do so. Leave the lab, evacuate the lab, and close the door. Notify the PI if present, and call for help. Call University Police at extension 5911 and ask them to send an officer to assist, and call the EHS office at extension 3427. If the hazard has potential to spread outside of the lab, Pull the fire alarm to evacuate the building. Contact University Police once outside the building. First aid kits are available for minor, non-life-threatening injuries. It is still required that a first report of injury be completed by the injured person and supervisor. The form is available on the Human Resources website. If there is a question about additional treatment, contact Student Health for students, Novant Care for facility and staff, or Sunset Security at Wake Downtown. Injuries requiring medical attention. For any life-threatening injury, immediately call 911. Never leave the victim alone. Direct another individual to call 911 if you are not near a phone, and have an individual meet arriving medical personnel and bring them to the victim. Wear gloves, eye protection, and a lab coat if necessary to avoid potential chemical contact and to avoid blood contact. Uncontrolled fire in the laboratory is life-threatening due to the storage of potential sources of fuel and oxygen located in many labs that may add to a conflagration. Pay attention to posted building evacuation routes. It is always a good idea to have at least 2 escape routes. Maintain clear means of egress. Don't store anything in hallways and make sure to not block exits. Fire doors are not to be propped open. Make sure there is 3 feet of open space on either side of mounted fire extinguishers. If you see smoke or fire in a building, pull the fire alarm and then evacuate. Call University Police on Ronaldo campus or building security at Wake Downtown to report the fire. Only use a fire extinguisher if you are not in immediate danger. Again, only use a fire extinguisher if your life is not in immediate danger. Be sure to keep your back to an exit so you can escape, and make sure you use the correct extinguisher for the fire. Not all fires are the same. The type of fuel determines which extinguisher should be used. If you don't have the correct type, do not attempt to extinguish the fire. Dry chemical or ABC extinguishers are the most common type on campus. They are useful against ordinary combustibles, flammable liquids, and electrical fires. Carbon dioxide extinguishers eliminate oxygen to stop the fire and are usually effective on Class B and C fires. A dry powder or Type D extinguisher separates fuel and oxygen in a fire. These are found in labs where pyrophoric and combustible materials are used. And Class K is an extinguisher to be used on cooking fires from oils and grease. To use the fire extinguisher, remember the word pass, P-A-S-S. Pull. Pull the metal or plastic ring at the top of the extinguisher. Aim. Aim at the base of the fire. If you aim at the flames, the extinguishing agent will pass right through. Aim for the fuel. Squeeze. Squeeze the top handle or lever. This depresses a button that releases the pressurized extinguishing agent. Sweep. Sweep from side to side until the fire is completely out. Start using the extinguisher from a safe distance and then move forward. Once the fire is out, keep an eye on it in case it reignites. Be aware the weather outside may affect your ability to perform laboratory functions inside a building. Snow, ice, flooding, or other natural events may make it impossible to reach the lab. Be sure there is a lab plan in place for handling shutdown and power-up in the event of a power loss. The Wake Alert website is the primary information source during an emergency at Wake Forest. Updates and information will appear on the Wake Alert website. Be aware of potentially hazardous weather conditions. In the event of a severe thunderstorm or tornado, seek shelter indoors immediately. Go to the lowest floor of the building in the innermost room or corridor. Always stay away from windows. This course has provided the basic information needed to work safely in the lab. More in-depth training will be necessary for specific functions that may be performed. These may include online or in-person courses. Persons performing work with any of the following hazards must complete additional training prior to working in the area: pyrophorics, radiation safety, biosafety and bloodborne pathogens, animal safety. Aside from your departmental and laboratory chemical hygiene officers, the Department of Environmental Health and Safety is here to assist you in making your teaching and research areas as safe as possible. Please feel free to contact our office with any questions. Don't forget to complete the certification link on the EHS website for this course. Thank you for your time and attention.